What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the safety market, it's heating up. It's getting saturated right now. The New York Giants, of course, made a big decision with Xavier McKinney, the decision to not make a decision and continue negotiating with him for the next few days. Of course, as we know, free agency right around the corner. Legal tampering period begins on Monday morning. The Giants and McKinney are still negotiating. McKinney said today on the Kay Adams show he wants to be a Giant. He's made that clear to them. He's made that clear to everybody he's spoken to. He still wants to be with the New York Giants and is hoping to re-sign, but the situation needs to be the right situation. And of course, that means he needs to get the right amount of money. And that's what they're talking about right now. But in the meantime, the safety market has just become very saturated. We've seen guys like Justin Simmons, Denver Broncos was just cut, could be a great option for the New York Giants if they don't end up re-signing Xavier McKinney. How about Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Kevin Byard? A lot of safeties out there on the market, so we are going to go ahead in today's episode and discuss what the backup plans could be if Xavier McKinney is not extended, what it could look like if he is extended, and they still want to add more safety help because, again, so much talent out there. They could probably retain McKinney and add another great defensive back to this group. And I know a lot of you are going to say we love Dane Belton, we love Jason Pinnock, but keep in mind, in this new Shane Bowen defense, you're going to see a lot of nickel and dime personnel, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for 3-4 safeties on the field at times. So adding depth, adding talent here in case of injuries is definitely going to be a crucial part of the offseason for Shane Bowen and Joe Shane. So we're just going to go ahead and really talk in general about the safety market and what it's looking like for McKinney and these other guys that pertain to the New York Giants. But before we do so, make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what is your reaction to the way that the safety market is kind of starting to shape out, because more and more talent just keeps getting added to the mix, and it's getting pretty exciting.
It is. And look, right now, the Giants, I guess 2 days ago when we discussed Xavier McKinney, the decision to not transition or franchise tag him, we were like, what are we doing here? And then 2 days later, the market is flush saturated with safety talent. And we're like, okay, well, now Joe Shane, maybe it makes kind of sense. The narrative I said a couple days ago that, they were giving McKinney the luxury of hitting free agency without the tag. I think it was an act of goodwill, because you hear what he said this morning on Up and Adams, and he said, I really appreciate the fact that they did not tag me, which seems to me that it was kind of a way for Joe Shane to say, we want to come to a compromise. We want to keep you. But this is it's a financial thing. It's not about you. It's not about the fact that, we want to let you go. It's more so like we have to stick to our guns. We have to stick to our models that suggest that this is how much we're willing to pay for a safety. This is what we believe is the right thing to do to keep our salary healthy long term. In my personal opinion, I think it was an act of good faith to keep the negotiations going, because if they would have tagged him, I think that whoever offered McKinney the first option over that red line, like if McKinney's agents got a deal over what the Giants were willing to offer via the transition tag, he would have taken it without hesitating. And the Giants would have been like, he would have just been like, screw the Giants. Now he's like, I want to come back to the Giants. I love the organization. He's saying all the right things, but he also made it a point to say, that obviously, I'm really appreciative that they did not tag me. So I think that did play into the equation. Now you look, Justin Simmons, Kevin Byard, Quandre Diggs, how many guys? Tracy, there's Jordan Poyer hits the market. There's tons of veteran talent now. The Giants could say, well, we don't want to spend top dollar at the free safety position. Let's bring in someone that's a little bit older. Like, for example, Justin Simmons is a great example of that. 30 years old, coming from Denver, probably getting a lot less than Xavier McKinney on the open market. A two-time Pro Bowl winner, or a two-time Pro Bowler. This is a guy that has a lot of experience, has been in some good defenses. He's a veteran, leader. I think that, if you want to go with a cheaper alternative without committing long-term investments to the safety position, which some people would suggest is not good value based on positional value, maybe the Giants pivot to a veteran like that. Is that my preference? Not necessarily. I'm just floating the idea that there are veterans out there that could be of interest to the Giants if they say, you know what, McKinney wants to reset the market, McKinney wants too much, we don't want to go past this line because we can go at a cheaper price point with less money guaranteed, less commitment, and reinvest the difference in the offensive line or the pass rush. So, Anthony, looking at all the things that have transpired over the last couple of days and seeing how the market has become a little bit more saturated, how are you now feeling about the situation in terms of, do you think the Giants still made the wrong decision? And do you think that, with more options available, it drives McKinney's price down? Because naturally speaking, more supply equals less demand. So, theoretically, he should be a little bit cheaper now.
Yeah, he should be a little bit cheaper theoretically, but again, it's only in theory. Let's see how it is in practice. I do still feel like the New York Giants made the wrong decision. This hasn't changed my mind a whole lot. What I do like about this, the Giants have more options in case they lose McKinney. They should be able to find some solid talent. But look at the names that we're discussing. We're talking about Simmons, we're talking about Byard, Poyer, Hyde. All these guys are what, 30 plus? I mean, most of them are. Some of them are 32, and we're talking about them being capable reinforcements in case McKinney leaves. McKinney's 24. He's going to be 25 when the season starts. That's the big selling point for me on Xavier McKinney. He's not even in his prime yet. He's still scratching the surface. He's still growing. These other guys, they're not growing. They're regressing. They're leaving their prime, or they're out of their primes. That's why they're getting cut. These guys that get cut from their teams and then hit free agency, much different caliber of player than Xavier McKinney entering his second contract because, he was such a good player on his rookie contract and now he's trying to get a big deal. It's a different caliber of player. It's kind of like the argument that we made in today's earlier episode, Alex, where we were discussing Saquon Barkley. If you let him go, who's the running back that you get? You could pay half the price. You're getting probably half the player. And that's how I feel about the safety market as well. So I still feel like the Giants made the wrong decision. I understand why they made it, and I understand that it was because Xavier McKinney was adamant he did not want to be tagged. He wanted to make sure that he had freedom to negotiate with whoever that he wanted and that his market wouldn't be disrupted. I get that, but I'm still standing firm on my decision making here and my opinion, Alex, and saying it's a business. I get the good faith argument. The Giants operated in good faith. Personally, I don't think they should have. I think that they should have treated this as a business and kept the leverage that they had by using the tag. Now, again, they got rid of some of that leverage by letting McKinney continue to or just enter free agency as an unrestricted free agent, and they are continuing to negotiate with him. Maybe they get a deal done before Monday anyway. He doesn't even get the opportunity to test the market. Then it's all good, but I'm still going to stand firm on my opinion, and some people might disagree with me. That's totally fine. I still think that they should have transition tagged him just because it would give them more leverage at the negotiating table. However, he didn't want that to happen. Maybe they didn't want to ruffle his feathers. Totally fine. Now we know McKinney does want to be back. He said it publicly on the Kay Adams show. It was very clear he wants to re-sign with the New York Giants. Maybe a large portion of that is the fact that they did not franchise or transition tag him. It's totally possible. So it goes both ways. We're not in the room, so we don't really know what's going on in those negotiations. But again, I just think that as a business move, the Giants should have maintained that leverage by tagging him. But speaking more to this free agency market and how robust it is, because it is. There are a lot of options out there now for the New York Giants, but I am going to go back to the point that these options are very much stopgap bridge players. Like, I think Kevin Byard should be a top priority signing for the New York Giants if Xavier McKinney does leave. Kevin Byard played in Tennessee for a couple seasons under Shane Bowen. I mean, if you're looking back in his career, I think 2 years ago he was an All-Pro, and he's really been one of the best safeties in the NFL for the last 7 years, but that's kind of the second half of my argument. For the last, 7 years or so? He's been in the NFL for a while. All of these guys that are entering free agency, they're not the players that they used to be. So while I would love to sign a Kevin Byard and say, hey, that could be the Giants' solution to the safety position, reuniting this guy with his former coach, a good player. Even still, he's a good player who was a great player and who is unfortunately getting past his prime. So that's still going to be my argument here with the Xavier McKinney versus the other free agent options. However, the argument that you made, Alex, that I do like, this might drive McKinney's price down a little bit. If all of these safeties enter the market, some of these teams that may have been prepared to pay top dollar to the best safety on the class might say, okay, you know what? Let's not go top dollar on one of these guys. Let's kind of lower our price tag, lower our spending, and go after somebody who's a little bit more affordable. And of course, as you said, that might lower Xavier McKinney's dollar amount and value in the open free agency market too. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it shapes out. It's kind of hard to predict here because you know how free agency is, Alex. Someone might get crazy and say, all right, 24, 25-year-old ball hawk in McKinney, we're just going to throw him the bag and that's it. Now he's gone. It's totally possible. But we've also seen times where, take last season, for example, Alex, with Julian Love. Julian Love goes into free agency. He was looking for, I believe, a contract paying him around $10 million per season. What did he get? I think 6 per season. I think he got like half of what he wanted, signing with the Seattle Seahawks. So it's really tough to predict how the safety market is going to look because there's been so much variance in recent years and there's been so much supply and it's driven down prices. So it's really a wait and see game here now with the New York Giants and this negotiation with Xavier McKinney. But obviously, the Giants benefit from how many safeties are available on the market. I think that's going to be a huge draw for them as they get into these negotiations with Xavier McKinney. But Alex, of these safeties, of these guys that are available, who stands out to you? I've obviously listed a few names. I've said a few of these guys: Justin Simmons, of course, Kevin Byard, the two Bills players that were cut, of course, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. So, but out of all this talent and out of this group, Alex, who is it that stands out to you that you think could be a realistic replacement for Xavier McKinney if the Giants were to move on, or maybe even play alongside Xavier McKinney if they are able to crunch the numbers and get two guys under the cap?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's totally possible. I personally really like Justin Simmons as a potential alternative. 30 years old, still, playing pretty solid ball, really good tackler. His grades this past season weren't ideal. Still a good player this past season, but they weren't obviously what they were in the past. And I think primarily that's because the Denver Broncos are an absolute mess. Offense is garbage. Defense was awful. Their scheme was horrendous. Like, they just overturned a lot. I think right now, if you're the Giants, you're thinking, well, maybe we go out and get a veteran like this, sign him to like a 2-year deal. Simmons will be 32 years old. You can still get plenty of value out of a player like this, who, by the way, plays a lot of football. He's played a minimum of 800 snaps since 2018, including 4 seasons since then, with over 1,000 snaps. Played just under 1,000. This past season with the Broncos, and had pretty good tackling, pretty good coverage grades, gave up 324 yards, had 3 interceptions and 5 pass breakups. This is a decent player, guys. I mean, it's a 2-time Pro Bowler. It's not going to get much better than that in terms of finding like a good, competent free safety right off the market. He can do some versatile stuff. He's 6'2", 202 pounds, got some good size. I personally think this is not a bad option if the Giants say to themselves, well, you know what, we don't want to give 16 or 17 million dollars per season over 4 years to McKinney, maybe even 5 years because he's 24 years old. We can give Justin Simmons 2 years at like, I don't know, $8 or $9 million per season or $10 million per season, like a pretty significant reduction in terms of price tag. No real long-term commitments here, and you can use the draft in the future to solve this spot and maybe develop a player to take over long-term. So that's my alternative plan. You save money. You develop a young player to take over. You replace McKinney with another good player that's going to cost a lot less. So that's kind of the way I would go if we didn't go back to McKinney, who's obviously probably the top of the market right now with based on his age and upside. Again, you're losing a key player, you're losing a key veteran on this team and a key leader, but Simmons does bring those tangible and intangible qualities to the Giants for a couple of years at a much reduced price tag. So I think that's probably the direction I would steer in if, Big Blue decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah, and I like Simmons. I think Simmons is still a really good player. However, I'm just going to keep, hitting the drum and saying one of the main points that you made there. He is 30. It's a big difference to me. I just think it's a huge deal when you're looking at a guy like McKinney who's 24, 25. I know that there's some sort of discrepancy here, though. I do have to recognize this. We keep saying he's 24, turning 25 by the time the season starts, and then there's other websites that have him listed as 25 already. It's a little bit random. I don't know which one is actually right. I've seen a few people comment it in the comments below, but I know that there are some sources that say 24, some that say 25. It's a little bit random, but whatever. 25, 26, whatever age he is, he's at least 4 years younger than all the other players that we're mentioning in these conversations. And that's the main selling point to me. And I know some fans don't feel like investing long-term into the safety position is a great option, but we're talking about all these great players who are hitting free agency now looking for these third contracts. They got there by having second contracts that clearly were easy to get out of because that's why they've all been cut. So if the New York Giants were to sign Xavier McKinney long term, I don't think that it would burn them. I think that they could get out of it if they needed to. But also because he's so young, by the time his contract expired, he's looking for that third contract. Maybe that's when you move on. Maybe that's when you pivot to a younger option. But I do think that there is something to be said about how all these guys entering the market right now, they're not McKinney's age. The other safeties, Alex, that were McKinney's age and impending free agents, we're talking Antoine Winfield, who got franchise tagged, and we're talking Kyle Duggar, who got transition tagged. The other safeties were tagged at McKinney's age. So it's very rare that players like Xavier McKinney hit the open market. There's always a robust safety market, like every year, and that's part of the reason that we're having this discussion. It's part of the argument here with not paying McKinney. I understand. There's always a bunch of good safeties available in free agency, but there's rarely good safeties available in free agency who are only 25 years old. It's so rare that players like that hit the open market. And that's why I still, no matter what, feel like the Giants shouldn't be letting this player willingly, freely hit the open market as an unrestricted free agent. I think there should have been some sort of tag because just looking at it, man, the other players in his similar skill range and age range, they got tagged, except for McKinney. And it still doesn't add up for me. But looking at this safety market, surely the New York Giants can go out there and find a capable replacement. I don't think that the high-end potential is there in a guy like a Simmons anymore or a Kevin Byard, but those guys are still solid veterans who will be able to contribute for the New York Giants and will be able to play well. One thing, though, Alex, there's just one player that I want to throw out there and say stay away from. I don't want to see the New York Giants sign Jamal Adams. I think Jamal Adams was a merchant of one specific defensive scheme when he was with the New York Jets. Like, he was very good in, I think it was Greg Williams, that one specific defensive scheme. He knew how to use him. He was very versatile in scheme, was really good. Injuries have piled up. He's played in new schemes with Seattle Seahawks. He hasn't been good. I have zero faith that he can come over to the New York Giants and make an impact. Maybe you just want to get your quick take on that. If there's any of the safeties available that Giants fans may be interested in, I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and say they should be avoiding Jamal Adams, not pursuing Jamal Adams. I think there are much better options to pursue.
Jamal Adams is an absolute head case. I want nothing to do with Jamal Adams. Also, he's an awful safety at this point in time. Like, he's not a good player anymore. At free safety, I think he's more of a strong safety anyway, but I mean, he's crazy. Like, he's nuts. I really don't. I mean, you watched him last year. Somebody hit him, and he, like, freaked out on the sideline and, like, left the field and, like, was yelling at the trainer and stuff like that and, like, apologized after. Like, that dude is not built for New York. I don't think we would eat him alive. The media would eat him alive. And the fan base would eat him alive. It's not a player I think the Giants should be going after by any means. I'd rather draft someone in the mid rounds to take over than go after Jamal Adams, just because it's not a good plan. Obviously, I'm a little bit more. I like Justin Simmons. There's some other guys out there. Kevin Byard's good. Might be a little cheaper too. The Giants will have options, and I think they're going to be pretty aggressive when it comes to filling that safety position. To be quite honest with you, if they don't sign McKinney right off the bat in free agency, I'm thinking within the first week of free agency that we're probably going to have either a different player or we're going to come to a compromise depending on what other offers McKinney gets. There are going to be teams out there that want to take that next jump and need that key defensive leader in the secondary that say, that's our last piece to the puzzle. You know what I mean? Like, if you're the Eagles and you have a little bit of money, I don't know how much cap space they have, but you could be like, well, that guy's a monster. Like, he could turn things around for us. I don't even know, let's say teams with the most cap space in the NFL right now, like competitive teams that have a lot of money. Not the Commanders, not the Patriots, not really the Titans, the Texans. I mean, think about the Texans could use a player like McKinney. He would be a great fit for them. He would turn their defense into something special. Cardinals, not so much. Bears, not so much. Colts getting Anthony Richardson back, I'm not totally convinced. The Bengals could be a good fit. Again, the Lions, oh my God. Like, McKinney on the Detroit Lions, their defense, their secondary was absolutely trashed in the playoffs and towards the end of the season. They get a player like McKinney, have some young talent. They can make a Super Bowl appearance next year. You know what I mean? Like, that's a great team that I could see McKinney going to. If I'm the Lions, that's one of my preferences. You got Jahmyr Gibbs and Jordan Montgomery locked up. You got Jared Goff, Sam Laporte, got tons of youth across the roster. Why not replace like C.J. Gardner-Johnson with Xavier McKinney? That's a hell of an upgrade. So, if you're McKinney, you're thinking to yourself, like, the Giants are not going to be my only option. I'd love to stay, but my market is still going to be there. Like, there's still going to be teams that want a player of that magnitude. So if the Giants want him back, they're going to have to do it pretty quickly. They're not going to be able to wait very long before he's scooped up off the market, in my opinion. So, I wonder what you think about that in terms of other teams being aggressive. I think the Giants may not have more than a week to get a deal done.
I think that deal is getting done day one of free agency. I really think when you look at this market, of all the free agents available, Xavier McKinney is going to be one of the hottest commodities, in my opinion. I was just looking at this, Alex. This is really interesting. I went on to Spot Rack, and I put in free agents 2024 sorted by only safeties, and then I sorted by youngest age. Of course, you look at the oldest age, and dude, it is littered with a bunch of 30-year-olds who just got cut, like a bunch of washed-up guys like Kevin Byard, Adrian Amos, Quandre Diggs. Throw Justin Simmons in that situation too, or in that conversation too. Like, so many of these guys were 30+ and just got cut. Now, if you sort opposite by youngest age, here are the youngest players: AJ Finley, Khalif Halisi, I don't know who that is, Adarius Washington, Xavier McKinney. He is the fourth youngest safety that's going to be a free agent this offseason. And by far the best out of any of those guys in that 24-year-old range. If you look at the guys who are 25 to 26, you're talking Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. If you want to throw Cameron Curl and Geno Stone into those conversations, sure, those are solid players. Terrell Edmonds, Ashton Davis. I mean, you're not talking about a whole lot of talent that you can build around for the future in the safety market. Of the young guys, it's Xavier McKinney, then everybody else. If a team wants a safety that they can plug in as the anchor and the safety net of their defense for the next 4 years, the only serious option that they have on this market is Xavier McKinney. He's still going to have a serious market. He's still going to have a competitive market and a bunch of guys who want to sign him in free agency, in my opinion. Even though all this other talent got added to the free agency pool, yes, exciting players, but veteran players, older players. McKinney is still a young, rookie-aged player. You cannot sleep on the fact that he is so young and he still is growing. And I really think that looking at this Shane Bowen defense, what it requires, what it wants to do defensively, I mean, oh my God, Xavier McKinney is a perfect fit for what Shane Bowen wants to do on defense. I'm just going to keep banging the drum, guys. I know a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of you feel like it's not smart to invest in a safety like that. I don't think the Giants have enough talent to pick and choose who they keep and let go at this point. They've got to sign their good players. They've got to retain their good players. That's just how I feel. And Xavier McKinney, when you're looking at this market, yes, it's saturated with a bunch of safety talent, but it's not young safety talent. Xavier McKinney is the fourth youngest player in the free agency pool at the safety position. He's going to be a hot commodity. It's going to be very quickly that he gets a deal done with another team or with the New York Giants. And if it's not with the New York Giants, they can sit and wait. So you're right on that point. They can wait probably a week to get a deal done with one of these other safeties, these veterans. I think that the veterans are going to take more time, see what's out there for them, really take a look at what teams they can go to, where they have the best chance of winning. A lot of those guys want to win. And that's another side of this equation, Alex, that maybe we're not talking about enough. With these veteran players who were just recently cut, like Justin Simmons. I was reading online today, Justin Simmons made his intentions clear when he was released. He wants to go to a team that he thinks he can win playoff games with. Are the New York Giants that team, Alex? I'm not so sure. So is Justin Simmons really even an option for the Giants? Does he even care to go to New York? He might not. And that's another part of this conversation that again ties back to the fact that the Giants should have held Xavier McKinney under lock and key with that transition tag. They shouldn't have let him go because do players want to play for the New York Giants? I'm not so sure. Are any of these veterans going to be persuaded to join the Giants, a sinking ship here that just came off of a 6-11 season, versus going to a team like, you mentioned, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans? How about these other teams that are really good, competitive, Super Bowl contenders potentially? If you're Justin Simmons, Alex, seriously, would you rather pay or would you rather play for Houston Texans or Detroit Lions or New York Giants? You know where you want to go. You want to go to the team that's going to get you some wins and get you some playoff wins and some rings. That's where you want to go. So the Giants, I don't think they're going to have the easiest time. And again, we always talk about, why sign this guy when you can spend that money here? It's not so easy to plug and play. Some guys might just not want to play for the New York Giants. Like, we want Mike Onwenu. Sacrifice Saquon Barkley. Reallocate that money towards Mike Onwenu. What if Onwenu's like, hell to the no. I'm sick of losing like I have been in New England the past few years. I'm going to a team that's going to win some games. Totally possible. So that's why, again, just going back into this argument, the New York Giants cannot afford to let these players, they're good players, hit the open market, because once you're good and you hit the open market and you have good teams calling for you and sending you money, you might just say, all right, I know I told the Giants that I'd match that offer with them or give them that offer. This team's offering me a little bit less money, but I'm going to win here, so I'm going to go there instead. And maybe state income taxes get involved in that equation. What if the Dolphins offer the Xavier McKinney a little bit less money? No state income tax in Florida, but you know what? He'll make more money there because of the income tax in New York. So maybe he goes to the Dolphins instead of the Giants. Again, it just all wraps up into this argument. Like you asked me at the beginning of the episode, have I changed my mind? Do I still have the same opinion? My opinion remains the same. I think that the Giants have mishandled the situation, and I am still nervous going into free agency that McKinney is going to get a better offer elsewhere. However, I could be wrong. I'm really hopeful that I'm wrong because, damn it, I do want to see Xavier McKinney back here. But looking at the safety market, diving a little bit deeper, I know we kind of went into this conversation, Alex, excited because there are so many options out there. But like I said, the fourth youngest player on the market at that position, it's Xavier McKinney, and he's by far the best in that age group. He really should be a priority re-signing for the Giants. I know that they said they're going to continue negotiating before the league, the opening of the legal tampering period. they really need to crunch those numbers and get this deal done, in my opinion. I think that this is a priority re-signer for the Giants, but I know a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of exciting options out there on the free agency market. Maybe I'm curious, Alex, what are your thoughts on that before we wrap up? Just kind of everything I said there. And, if there's anybody else on the free agency market that you want to bring up as potential suitors for the Giants if they want to play for the Giants. Again, another key aspect of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look, right now the Giants have $38 million in cap space, a little bit more than that. They can clear another $25 million by restructuring Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence's contract. And not to mention taking the out and Daniel Jones contract, you can clear upward of 25, maximum of $30 million next year if you spread out the dead money over the final 2 years of the deal. So the Giants' salary cap health is more than fine. I think right now my number one focus, like I said earlier in today's episode about Saquon Barkley, offensive line and defensive line. If the Giants let Xavier McKinney go, safety should be the third thing on the priority list. You know what I mean? It should be Mike Onwenu, it should be Daniil Hunter or Bryce Huff, and then it should be a free safety and a CB2. Or rather a CB2 and then a free safety. You could interchange those if you want. But that's the thing to me. It's like right now it's all about the offensive line, protecting the quarterback. Because listen, even if the Giants defense isn't very good in 2024, maybe our offense takes a big step forward. And because this is an offensive league, you need to have a better offense than defense. And ultimately, I do believe that right now, if we have to throw everything we have into developing a very good offense, whether it be getting another quarterback, whether it be investing in the offensive line, whether it be drafting a receiver, all of our capital needs to be a priority kind of right to the offensive mediums here. So, I'm not even thinking about, of course, I'd love to bring back McKinney, but if they want to go into free agency and see what he can get, the Giants in the meantime should say, all right, well, while we're waiting to see what the maximum offer for McKinney is, we're going out and getting our offensive line support. We're going out and getting our defensive line support. We're going out and getting a receiver if we need some depth there. Maybe a tight end if Darren Waller expires. There's a lot that needs to happen on offense. And that's the priority right now. That's what it should be. I think Jordan Ronan said that the offensive line is going to be the priority. They're going to invest capital there. Most likely free agency is going to be heavy into that. I could see them going after a guy like Onwenu and Jermaine Illuminor, or they could go after Onwenu and a Jonah Jackson, or a Jermaine Illuminor and a Jonah Jackson, or a Kevin Dotson, or a Robert Hunt. There's plenty of options. We'll see what Carmen Brasillo actually wants, because I think the scheme fit is kind of important there because of his style. But right now, if they want to let McKinney go to free agency and see what he can get, and let Saquon go and see what he can get, first thing on the docket, figuring out our offensive line. That is priority number one to me. So, yeah, that's kind of what the cap space should be allocated toward immediately. And then you figure out what you have left over after that. And then you keep going and building out the rest of this roster with the supplementary pieces or starting level pieces that you need to compete in 2024, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points there. Again, I think that I could debate against a few of those, like investing into the offensive line. What if these offensive linemen just don't want to go here? You got to keep that in mind, Alex. I think that's something that we do need to talk about. We sign a lot of offensive linemen, the Giants do, and then they just end up being terrible here and then going on elsewhere and being better. Maybe some offensive linemen are picking up on that now, saying, well, John Feliciano went there and was terrible. Then he went to the 49ers, went to a Super Bowl, and was one of the best interior offensive linemen in the NFL. So maybe I don't want to go there. Maybe it's going to kill me and hurt my development. It's something that I think we need to consider as fans, that players might consider those factors that we talk about as reasons why not to sign with the New York Giants. So I think it's going to be tricky now when you go into this offseason again. That's why I just thought having that leverage with Xavier McKinney, the safety net, was important. But now they're going into this open market, and it's the wild, wild west out here. Let's see what happens with the New York Giants. It's going to be really exciting. You made a lot of good points on where they should invest their money, who they should go after. I'm curious to see how it goes and what ends up happening, of course. And we're going to update you guys on that right here on Fireside Giants, talking about any rumors, any official signings, transactions, trades. Last year, Joe Schoen started free agency with a big splash, made the trade for Darren Waller. I'm curious to see if something like that happens again this offseason, especially considering how much conversation has been happening about the Giants potentially moving up for a quarterback. Now, we know oftentimes those things happen the day of the draft. Oftentimes they happen a few weeks prior. Sometimes they do happen at the start of free agency. So It's going to be a really interesting next few days. I'm super excited, Alex, to break all this stuff down with you and give all these great viewers of Fireside Giants all the necessary updates and news regarding our beloved and overwhelming New York Giants. So that'll pretty much wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And comment your thoughts on the topics down below in the comment section. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
TVSO.